Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. You are watching Thaqalayn Talks through 30 nights of the holy month of Ramadan. We are going to share with you different programs and topics related to the holy month of Ramadan and fasting, with the presence of different and diverse speakers, guest speakers, Islamic scholars from the Islamic House of Home. Inshallah, I am Ata, the host of this program. This program is presented to you by Noor Online Islamic Center, and also the program Thaqalayn Talks can be registered on Thaqalayn-course.com. Those who did not have the chance of registering for, we can say, that's right, on Zoom in order to watch the program, can tell our dear brothers and sisters all around the world to have free registration on Thaqalayn-course.com. With me tonight we have a very special guest speaker, Sayed Ali. Assalamu alaikum, Sayed, and welcome to the show.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin. First of all, I have to say salam to all of dear brothers and sisters across the world that tonight we have the advantage of being with, and say salam to you, dear brother Ata.
Thank you, brother.
I hope that tonight we will have a very good and advantageous and beneficial session and actually dialogue.
Inshallah, with your presence, inshallah. So, for tonight's discussion, we want to talk about a significant topic, and that is the meaning of life through the whole holy month of Ramadan. How the holy month of Ramadan is going to give us a new meaning in life. So we know that the holy month of Ramadan is different. I mean, in comparison to the other Islamic months, it's different. During the whole year, it has a different color and shade, Now, the question is that how to pursue new meanings of life during the holy month of Ramadan?
Inshallah. Okay, before entering the main topic, let me extend my congratulations on the auspicious, precious occasion of the holy month of Ramadan. We actually extend our thankfulness and gratitude to the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us this year the privilege of entrance of this month. Inshallah, by His blessing and grace, we will be able to pray as much as possible, to get closer to Him as much as possible, inshallah. It's a very good question and it's a very good topic, and in order to cover the whole content, I prefer and I would like to divide the content that I am going to deliver to two main parts.
Very good.
The first part will be pertaining the meaning of the life or the philosophy of the creation of such entity called human being. And in the second part, I will try to speak about the unique role of the holy month of Ramadan in achieving that philosophy, in actualizing that philosophy, and actually reaching and approaching the objective of the life of the human being. Okay, in the first part, if I want to summarize the philosophy of the creation of such entity called human being, if I want to deliver the objective and the meaning of the life of human being in brief, in one word, I can say the philosophy of this creation is pleasure and joy. According to a very nice and beautiful analysis that Avicenna, Ibn Sina, has in his precious book of Isharat, in the 8th and 9th part, Namat 8 wa 9, of that book, he talks about the lives of the mystics or ʿārafa. Yes, the people who have been able to connect and construct a sort of actually internal heart relation and connection to the source of all beauty and all power and all strength and all knowledge in the universe, which is the infinite existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says that the ʿārif or a believer that seeks this path of getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the human being that experienced the feeling and taste of joy and pleasure more than any other human being. Because he always comprehends infinite perfection.
Yes.
Okay? He says that the sense and feeling of pleasure, the feeling of joy, is the production of the combination of two elements. One, comprehension, understanding, conceiving and perception. And second, what is the thing that is perceived, that is comprehended? Perfection.
Yes.
When you notice a sort of perfection, you come up with a feeling of joy and pleasure and you admire it. For example, you see a picture that is hanged on the wall, a painting, a nice actually handwriting. You come up with a feeling of pleasure and you admire it. You say it is very beautiful.
A beautiful scene in nature, for example.
Everything.
Yes.
Everything. Some cases of perfections that we may conceive, some of them are external.
Yes.
Perfections that are existing out of our existence. For example, this beautiful picture, this beautiful actually view of the nature, as you mentioned, this beautiful actually, for example, this nice and beneficial book, this nice and beneficial tool, everything. And sometimes that source of perfection that we may perceive and comprehend is internal.
Okay.
For example, when you know that you have the ability to know lots of things, the ability of writing a very precious and actually beneficial book,
Yes.
you are an artist, you are able to build and make a very glorious statue.
Yes.
Okay, so you admire yourself and you have this feeling of joy and pleasure because of the perfection that you have inside yourself. Then he says that because ʿārif is the person that is always noticing and comprehending the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is such entity that combines and brings together all sorts of perfections and existential properties. So because he sees and he finds and he notices this entity everywhere and in any single aspect and angle of the reality of being, so he is constantly admiring this infinite perfection.
Yes.
So he is the person that experiences a life of pleasure and joy all the time, endlessly and constantly.
That's right. But the nature of this joy and pleasure must be very much different from the mundane materialistic one, isn't it?
Because they are sufficient, because they are limited. Okay? And among the whole creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the human being is the creature that is created for the purpose to reflect
Yes.
all of the existential properties and perfections of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the desire of the human being is infinite and endless. Okay? The thing that he seeks as the objective of his perfections and existential properties and possessions should be actually infinite and endless.
Is it only limited to urafa, or no, all the human beings, as you mentioned, they are the best creatures of Allah on earth, have this capability of reaching such a perfection? I mean, I think you're going to get to the meaning of life now, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, to find the meaning of life in perfection towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
All of us, all human beings, actually and really in the reality of their existence and their life, seek the same thing. But the instance of that perfection that all of us seek might be different in accordance to different viewpoints.
Yes.
And the thing that we want to do here is to correct that objective. Okay?
Yes.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually, as it is said in our hikmah and actually irfani and hikmi disciplines of knowledge, it is mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the position of ma la yatanaha bima la yatanaha. It means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sort of existence that possesses endless perfections, endless numbers of perfections, every single one of which is endless in the measure. Endless perfections, every single one of which is endless as well. Okay?
That's right.
One of these attributes and perfections that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intrinsically and naturally possess is awareness and knowledge. So at the same time that He is composed and combined by infinite, endless perfections, at the same time and simultaneously, He is endless awareness of this and comprehension of these endless perfections.
That's right.
Okay?
So the people must find this knowledge and ma'rifah, isn't it? In order to see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has control over everything in our life. I think this view in Islam is very much different from the secular one. I mean, I think you are very much referring to a kind of Tawhidi or Muwahid look, the monotheistic look, isn't it? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has supremacy over everything and anything in our life. So on that side, the meaning of life that is going to be reached through all the days and all the moments of our life is very much different. I mean, now our look into the world, our children, our parents, friends, colleagues, all the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala around, all of a sudden are different, isn't it, Sayyid?
Yes, of course. It is different, but the thing that I want to put the finger of emphasis on is the fact that this joy and pleasure is the thing that is sought by all human beings.
Yes.
Okay? But just this is the meaning of the life. You see? Behind and beyond this physical realm of the life that is common between all human beings, behind it, beyond it,
Yes.
stands a layer that is called the meaning of the life.
That's right.
Okay?
Okay.
That is not physical.
Mhm.
That is not touchable.
Yes.
Okay? This is the idea that supports your physical aspect of the life. But this is metaphysical. This is from the nature of knowledge and awareness. In accordance to the viewpoint that you look at the universe, you know the universe, in accordance to the way that you construct the relation between the visible realm of the creation and invisible realm of the creation, the visible realm of your creation will be controlled and managed totally differently. But we say that the final and real and the ultimate joy is accessible and is possible to be gained and attained in accordance to the viewpoint that human being among the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is to reflect all possessions and perfections and properties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whenever he is able to get unified and acquire and require and attain and possess every single one of perfections of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, step by step he is getting closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it means that he is getting similar and similar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the attributes.
Yes.
When you are able to settle,
Yes.
to install one of the perfections of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as intrinsic nature of your entity, so you're getting similar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I was mentioning this fact, and it is a very important one, that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is infinite awareness and comprehension of infinite perfections that He intrinsically possesses,
Yes.
so He is, the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is equal to infinite joy and pleasure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in its essence is infinite joy and pleasure because of its essence.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Because this pleasure and joy is the fruit of the combination of awareness and perfection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is endless perfections and at the same time is endless awareness. So He is endless joy and pleasure.
Yes.
And He wanted to share this endless joy and pleasure with something out of its essence. So He created. And He prepared the field for human being among His creatures to experience the same pleasure.
So with such a look at the concept of joy and pleasure and meaning in life, all these temporary joys and pleasures which are around us, I mean, in terms of the materialistic world, are considered as short-term ones, isn't it? We are not going to be satisfied in terms of our spirit, or spiritually speaking, with such temporary joys and pleasures. So we are looking now for an everlasting prosperity, both in this world and the hereafter. So there is no way, rather than getting, as you said, this ma'rifah, the knowledge and the joy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How, Sayyid, the holy month of Ramadan is going to help us to strengthen such a feeling, I mean, to look for such a meaning in life in a different way?
Good. As a preliminary step to come to this point that you mentioned, actually we want to end our discussion with this important point. I said that human being is the mirror that is able to reflect all perfections of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he will be able to experience sort of same pleasure and joy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feels about his essence.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Okay.
This is the position that the Holy Quran mentions when it says, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. You see, when the Holy Quran talks about the asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what are those asma? Those asma are those endless, infinite names and perfections and attributes and characteristics and existential properties and elements of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, among my creatures, I gave all of those existential properties and perfections to this entity, which is Adam. Okay?
Yes.
But there is a difference between the perfection that you have actually intrinsically,
Yes.
and without the actually offering any attempts to acquire, and the perfections that you attempt to acquire. Okay? It is said about the malaikah and angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم. You see, they don't have any material desires, so they are settled and fixed in a special rank of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they never disobey any rule and regulation that is directed to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
They cannot even commit sins.
Commit sins.
Yes.
Okay? So, yes, they comprehend the perfections that they possess, but there is a big difference and differentiation between the perfections that you acquire through your free will when you are standing in front of two ways and two sides. Okay? One way is the way of deviation, and one way is the way of actually
Right and wrong, you mean? That's
yeah, right and right.
Yes.
If you choose the right way and you acquire this perfection by your free will, okay, you will enjoy more.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the same fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Adam descend from the position of being actually sunk and drowned in the realm of infinite names and asma. Okay? We all know the story of Prophet Adam. By committing a sort of a special sin that we are not talking about right now, the fall of Adam took place. Okay? And he descended from the position of being actually totally surrounded by the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is the meaning of that fall? As soon as he committed that sort of sin, he noticed his body. This is the fall. Simultaneously, at the same time that he had the position of being sunk and drowned in the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he did possess the body and the material aspect, but he was totally oblivious and negligent of it because of being drowned in that endless ocean of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As soon as he committed that sin, he became oblivious and negligent of those names, and he noticed his material body.
That's all right.
Okay? So he saw himself in the need of eating and in the need of sleep after eating.
Mm-hmm.
Shaitan was very happy. He said that he noticed his material aspect, So he needs eating and he needs sleep right now. And through these two apertures, I am able to
Now
make
it's
him
time
deviate.
for me in order to deviate in this.
In this case was the case, in the case of the fall of Adam, in the case of the descent from that position of being annulled and amalgamated with all names and attributes and perfections of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he is far from that position and he sees a far distance between this material aspect and that immaterial aspect, that he has started return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in actually the form of tawbah. The tawbah of Adam alayhi salam to the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means his sadness because of being far away from the state and position of being similar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by possessing all perfections and names and being stuck in the realm of nature and substance and matter. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed this plan in order for the human being and the actually son of Adam in order to acquire and possess every single one of those names and perfections one after another in order to be able to experience the feel and taste of joy and pleasure because of acquiring them one after another by his own free will and by his own attempt and exertion.
And we know that the holy month of Ramadan is attributed and affiliated with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't it?
Of course.
As this, we call it Shahrullah, isn't it? So I think this feeling of joy and sharing of the joy and pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with His creatures, all the whole holy month of Ramadan is more tangible and touchable for the believers all across the world. Thank you very much, Sayed Ali. Still we are talking about the purpose of life and the meaning of life and how the holy month of Ramadan can help us in order to reach such a meaning. You are watching Thaqalayn Talks on
And we haven't yet reached that stage.
Yes,
we'll mention
we'll
the role of the month of Ramadan.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So some of our participants are watching us live on Zoom, presented to them by Noor Online Islamic Center and Thaqalayn course. If your brothers and sisters, other believers around the world are interested in registering for free, they can visit our website at thaqalayn-course.com. Again, talks will take place on the Zoom throughout the holy month of Ramadan, and a series of 30 insightful talks are designed to enrich your spiritual journey in the month of Allah. If agreed, let's get to the holy month of Ramadan, Sayyid. So how Shahrullah, the month of Allah, is going to help us to reach such a joy and satisfaction, and how is it different from, the other days and the moments of our life?
We can say the holy month of Ramadan is the unique helper and supporter of achieving that meaning of the life that is the endless perfection. This is the best tool and the best supporter. How? In accordance to our riwayat, we have to always commemorate and remain the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the life, in order not to lose and not to forget that objective of joy and pleasure, that aim of the life that brings us the constant feeling of joy and pleasure. So we always have to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is divided and is categorized to 3 ranks and categories in accordance to our narrations and the actually revelatory teachings. They said we have 3 stages and ranks of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tongue remembrance, the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is held by this tongue. I say Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, or dhikr by the tongue.
That's right.
And we have the stage and the rank of the dhikr by the heart. The constant presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the field and in the layer of your emotions and desires and inclinations. You never forget the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the fabric of your emotions and inclinations. This is the heart dhikr that is deeper and more actually influential and effective layer of the dhikr than the layer of the tongue dhikr, the tongue remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And deeper than the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the heart, we have practical remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in practice. What does it mean? In every single decision, Brother Ata, that we make during this lifespan of this material world, in every single decision that we make, we are standing in front of two ways. By every single decision that we make in this material world, we either make intellect or aql or reason and its armies dominant over the territory of our existence, or we make ignorance or jahl and its armies dominant over the territory of our existence and reality. Okay? And the best judge is ourselves, because every single decision that we make, we are totally aware either this decision is based on the satisfaction with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or anger with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is this decision based on patience or based on hurry? Is this based on gratitude and thankfulness to the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or is based on blasphemy? Is this decision that I make in my relations with other people is based on the greed to what is in the hand of the people, or is it based on the actually disappointment from what is possessed by the people? Okay?
My hope is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Of course.
I trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Is this decision that I make is based on trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or is on distrust to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And these actually attributes that I name that stand in contrast with one another,
Yes.
is hurry and patience. Distrust in Allah, distrust in Allah. Or for example, disappointment from the things that are possessed by the people, or greed or jealousy, for example. These are the armies of intellect or the armies of ignorance, in accordance to that famous riwayah and narration that is delivered and presented and stated by Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. The entity and existence of human being is a combination of these two sides: intellect and reason and its armies, and ignorance and its armies.
And this intellect and aql we are talking about is very much different from the rational thinking, isn't it?
Of course.
I mean, in terms of, for example, that's right, the humanistic look.
That is not something that we can, like a concrete aim, we can prescribe for every individual. People have different ideas, different beliefs. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, brother. Okay, Sayed.
Yes, of course. Different people, in accordance to their different talents and capacities and abilities, has different way to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we believe that the religious rituals, the religious rules and regulations, okay, make the path available for every human being, including different talents, different capacities, different abilities, to approach the same objective, which is getting similar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? The thing that is produced by religion, by the divine religion, by the divine, actually correct religion, not the religion that believed that in isolation and getting away and far away from the society. Okay? The normal actions, the normal needs of human being during this ordinary life. We need food, we need to drink, we need to get married, we need to actually produce and actually deliver babies in order to maintain our generation. We need pleasure and joy, we need environment, we need entertainment, okay? All of this is intrinsically demanded by every human being.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
But the thing that is done and is actually delivered and presented by the divine religion is the fact that religion has gives a unique common meaning to all these material actions. Okay?
Very good.
You want to get married, if the level of your view is restricted and limited to the physical realm of the creation. You say that yes, I enjoy have this sexual relation with the opposite gender, so I get married and I have this pleasure. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But Islam says, yes, that physical pleasure is in its position and its place. We do not ignore that. We do not actually make it
Forbidden. That's
We
right.
do not make it forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
But we say that when a man confronts a woman, this man has some abilities and potentials, and this woman has some abilities and potentials as well. In dealing with one another and in having a common life with one another, a life of marriage with one another, they are able to actualize their own abilities and actually talents that are those names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have your sexual pleasure, but prefer the other side over yourself in order to be like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Or at least act according or under the shadow and umbrella of Islamic laws, it's
Of
better to
course.
say.
This Islamic law gives the meaning to life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You eat something. Do not eat just to strengthen your body.
Mm-hmm.
Eat that food in order to be able to support others, to support your children, to support your society. Okay?
Yes.
So you maintain the apparent material surface of the action, but it is filled with a glorious meaning as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And this meaning is available for all people by different talents. So they are able to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the aperture of their talents and abilities, in accordance to the meaning that is required through religious recommends.
Very good. That's right. And the world pictured in this way seems to be very much beautiful. I mean, considering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and God in your life, trying to get as close as possible to His attributes, to His world, and that time practicing His attributes in your daily life. I think so many of the problems of the society and the world will be solved
Of course.
this way. If you have a monotheistic, muwahhid, tawhidi look at the world, it will be very much different from the greedy, jealous, non-generous world that the people are following, unfortunately, in today's world. Thank you very much. Sayed Ali, it was very kind of you, really fruitful discussion on the meaning of life and the purpose of life, how the holy month of Ramadan is going to help us in order to strengthen, it's better to say, this new meaning in life. It was very kind of you, really.
Thank you so much, brother.
brother.
There is no need to hide this actually joy and happiness that I feel in the bottom of my heart because of being with you and dear viewers tonight, dear brothers and sisters all over the world, inshallah. I hope that this session and inshallah other sessions that we will be with the brothers and sisters will be advantageous and fruitful, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much,
You're
brother.
welcome, brother.
It was very kind of you. And thank you very much, dear viewers, for watching us. Thaqalayn Talks, presented to you by Noor Online Islamic Center and Thaqalayn Course.